Hi friends, I'm Erin from Go Font Yourself. I'm super excited to welcome you to Summer Workshop Retreat. I'm going to be teaching you some ways to make some 3D rainbow lettering. It's one of my favorite things to do, and it comes in handy if you ever want to give a homemade gift or just use it in your bullet journal just for you. So I'm going to be using some of my favorite supplies, Erin markers here, but if you don't have these exact markers, don't worry because you can use any water-based marker. So Tombows, there's lots of other options. So grab some in rainbow colors that you love. Watercolor paper is also key here. You can use mixed media. That's another one I use often for these kind of projects, also for practicing. So feel free to use that as well. I'm also going to be using a small paintbrush. This is the Pigeon Letters Round Brush 2, but you can use really any small detail paintbrush. And I'm also going to be using microns. You can use really any technical waterproof pen that's black, or really any color if you're feeling a little wild. So if you have all those materials, also a pencil and an eraser because those will come in handy later. Let's get started. So I'm starting out here with my word already written in a very light water-based marker, so I have it mapped out. I'm going to start with my Erin markers in rainbow colors, and you can really do this a bunch of different ways, but I like my letters each to have multiple different colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the colors where I think I want them. And you want to overlap them just a little bit. You actually don't have to. You can leave a little space in between if they're really contrasting colors. I'll do that a little bit, but these ones work really well together. So I'm going to go right up to the other color. And then I'm going to take my paintbrush with just a tiny bit of water and go over each portion. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to blend in where the colors meet together. You do not need a lot of water for this process, so just kind of dip it in, take the excess water out, and you should be fine with that. As you can see, these Erin markers are super neon. They're incredibly vibrant, and that's one of the reasons I love them so much. They also blend really easily. And you'll see here I'm using watercolor paper, so that makes it really simple. It soaks up a lot. It allows the water to sit on the surface for a little bit longer, so you can really get a good blend. With mixed media, you still have that too, but watercolor paper is just a little bit more durable, has a little bit more texture. And for me, that works well. And you can see here a little bit of water goes a very long way. And like I mentioned before, you can also use any different water-based markers here. I'm not saying they're going to work as well as the Erin markers, but they're definitely able to blend this way. And you want to use that background color as just a map for where you're going, but you can really adjust it along the way, as you'll see I do a couple times here. I'm using the Pigeon Letters Round Brush 2. It's one of my favorite paintbrushes of all time. It works so well for lettering. You can actually just letter with the brush itself. It's that good. And one of my favorite things about these Karen markers is just how pigmented and juicy they are. Do you see how it just like flows out of the tip? It's amazing. And you don't want to go over the same area too many times. It does start pilling the paper, depending on what kind of paper you're using. So it does start to kind of pull up the paper if you go over the same part too many times. So I try and get it all in just a couple swipes. And here I'm using the Canson Watercolor Excel paper, but there are many different options. I like to go over even the areas that I'm not blending with water. It just gives it the same kind of texture over the entire piece. And don't worry too much if your edges aren't totally perfect and crisp, because we're going to be outlining the letters with a technical pen later. So I don't worry too much about having a jagged edge here or there. There are also a variety of ways you can blend these colors together. You can probably blend them just with the brush pens themselves, depending on the brush pen. With Karen markers, you definitely can do that. There's also a blender brush that it comes with, so you can use that as well. This is just my favorite way to do it. Okay, so once you let it dry completely, and the key word here is completely, you do not want to smudge that. Grab your pencil. I like to put a sheet of paper under it just so I don't smudge the ones I'm writing over. And then we're going to start doing our 3D. And the key to doing this, I've found, is making sure the angles at the top and the bottom are the same, and then also that the width is the same. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of making sure that these angles are similar, but you want to pick one out of each of these categories. So the two categories are top or bottom. So you're going to pick one of those. I tend to go bottom. And then you're going to pick left or right. I go right almost every time. So my 3D effect is almost always to the right and to the bottom. So that means that to the right and to the bottom of each of your strokes, that's where you're going to put the 3D effect. And you want to make sure they're about the same width. So you can see here how I'm kind of going every single stroke to the right and to the bottom and just putting it out just a tiny little bit and making sure those angles are about the same. Now here's where I noticed that that was a little bit too wide. So I'm going to erase that, try again. That was my tiny desk vacuum, one of my favorite purchases of all time. So here I went back in and just tried to adjust the width of it a little bit to make it more cohesive with the rest. So I'm going to go in and pencil that in on each letter. So once you have it all sketched out the way that you would like, then you're going to take your technical pen, and really any black fine liner waterproof pen will do. I like to outline the letters first, and I go on all sides. I just think it makes it pop off the page a lot more if you do this first. So I'm gonna go in and outline all the letters, and that's why your edges don't matter all that much, because you're gonna cover them up with this pen anyway. And I'm gonna go ahead and outline that 3D effect as well. This part is a little time consuming, probably the most time consuming part of it. It just takes a lot of effort to get outside those tiny little lines. And don't worry too much if it's not perfect still. Number one, hand lettering is never perfect. And two, we're actually gonna go in with some details that are gonna hide any of those kind of wonky lines. So once you're done outlining, then grab that handy piece of paper so you don't smudge it all. And I like to add some details in this 3D effect. So what I like to do is kind of take the technical pen and do a very light flick of the wrist here to get a kind of a rough edged effect. And you'll see it come together here. It kind of gives the illusion that it's darker at the corners and then lighter in the middle. The watercolor paper is really perfect for this effect because it naturally kind of has this rough texture that helps the pen not give like a super solid line. And for the longer edges, you're gonna do longer strokes here. It definitely does not need to be perfect. You could also just fill in these edges completely black if you wanted. It looks really good that way as well. You could also use stippling to kind of give that illusion of darker in the corners and lighter where the light would be hitting. Curved ones are always a little more difficult, so don't be afraid to turn your paper in a direction that feels better for your hand. I'm trying to keep it steady here for this workshop, but I regularly have my paper upside down. So once you have your almost final piece, or actually it could be final right there, but I like to go in and add just a couple little white details on the edges of the letter there, kind of where the light might hit it, just to add a little more dimension. I'm using a Faber-Castell white bullet tip pen, and I like the effect that it has, but definitely not necessary. So once you're all set, you end up with something like this. and it's great for gifts or just keep it for yourself, whichever works. I really just enjoy the process is mostly the fun part for me. So I really appreciate you guys being here with me today. If you make a project like this, please tag me at Go Font Yourself, and that's my handle on Instagram, and I'm over on TikTok as well. So I'd love to connect with you on either of those platforms. And if you'd like a free template for some 3D lettering of your own, you can print it, you can do it digitally and practice. It's super helpful. You can find it on my website. It's www.fontyourself.com, and you do have to sign up through the contact form, and I will send it right over to you. I super appreciate your support, and I can't wait to see all your projects.